Ringo Starr, born Richard Starkey in Liverpool in 1940, is widely known as the steady heartbeat of the Beatles. While often described as the quietest member of the group, his journey is anything but simple. From a childhood marked by illness and instability to becoming part of the most influential band in music history, Ringo's life reflects resilience, adaptability, and quiet determination. The Beatles' story has been told countless times, yet it continues to attract new interpretations, theories, and retrospective reflections from those closest to it. Among these, Ringo's perspective has always been especially valued because of his position inside the group's emotional core, often mediating tensions while focusing on his role as drummer rather than primary songwriter. Over the decades, narratives about the Beatles' breakup have expanded far beyond music, often blending fact, memory, and speculation. One recurring topic is the influence of people surrounding the band during its later years, particularly Yoko Ono, John Lennon's partner. Some accounts suggest she played a significant role in shifting group dynamics, while others argue the breakup was inevitable due to creative differences and personal growth. This rewritten account revisits Ringo Starr's life and career in a structured, reflective format. It explores his early struggles, rise with the Beatles, experiences during their peak, internal tensions, solo success, personal life, and later, life reflections. It also examines how interpretations of the Beatles' breakup have evolved over time, emphasizing that many claims remain contested and subjective rather than definitive historical fact. Early life in Liverpool. Hardship and discovery. Ringo Starr's early years in Liverpool's Dingle district were shaped by hardship, illness, and instability. Born to Richard Starkey and Elsie Gleave, he experienced a fractured family life early on when his parents separated. His father's absence and his mother's struggles left a lasting emotional imprint, creating a childhood defined by uncertainty rather than security. A major turning point came when Ringo faced severe health problems. At just 6 years old, he underwent appendicitis surgery that led to complications and a long hospital stay. During this period, he was isolated from normal schooling and social development, falling behind his peers academically. However, this difficult chapter unexpectedly introduced him to rhythm and percussion. While recovering, Ringo began experimenting with makeshift percussion, tapping hospital objects, and finding rhythm in everyday sounds. This simple act became the foundation of his lifelong connection to drumming. Later, another illness, tuberculosis, kept him in medical care for an extended period, reinforcing his isolation, but also deepening his relationship with music as an emotional outlet. When he eventually returned to everyday life, school held little appeal for him. Instead, he gravitated toward music, dancing, and the growing skiffle scene in Britain. Liverpool in the 1950s was a working-class city filled with economic struggle, but also rich cultural exchange, particularly in American rock and roll influences arriving through records and radio. These early experiences shaped Ringo's personality, observant, humorous, and resilient. Rather than pursuing academic success, he focused on practical work and musical exploration. His early life did not hint at global fame, but it built the emotional foundation that would later allow him to adapt to the chaos of Beatlemania. First steps into music. From skiffle to drumming identity, Ringo's entry into music was gradual and rooted in Liverpool's vibrant amateur scene. He initially worked ordinary jobs, including railway and factory positions, but music remained his strongest interest. Skiffle bands, simple, energetic groups using guitars, washboards, and improvised instruments offered him an accessible entry point into performing. He joined local groups where creativity mattered more than formal training. Even without advanced technical skill, Ringo stood out for his timing, feel, and ability to support the rhythm of a song. Unlike many aspiring musicians focused on showmanship, he gravitated toward consistency and groove. A defining moment came when he received his first proper drum kit from his stepfather. Though basic and partly improvised, it allowed him to develop real technique. From that point, drumming became not just a hobby but a direction for his life. He practiced extensively, often experimenting with rhythm patterns inspired by American rock and jazz records. By the late 1950s, Ringo joined Rory Storm and the Hurricanes, one of Liverpool's prominent live bands. This group performed frequently in clubs and even abroad, including residencies in Germany, where many British bands honed their stage presence. These performances were crucial in shaping Ringo's professionalism and stage confidence. It was also during this period that he became known as Ringo Starr, a stage name reflecting both his rings and a Western-inspired persona. The transformation marked his shift from local musician to emerging professional performer. This phase of his life was essential preparation for what came next. While he was not yet famous, he had developed reliability, rhythm sensitivity, and adaptability qualities that would later make him indispensable to the Beatles. Joining the Beatles, a turning point in music history, Ringo Starr's entry into the Beatles in 1962 marked one of the most important transitions in modern music history. At the time, the Beatles, John Lennon, Paul McCartney, and George Harrison were already gaining attention in Liverpool and Hamburg, but were still refining their identity. Their original drummer, Pete Best, was replaced after the band and producer George Martin sought a different rhythmic style. Ringo, already familiar to the group through the Liverpool and Hamburg circuit, was invited to join. His reputation for steady timing and professional attitude made him a strong fit. Even though he was not initially the most technically flashy drummer, his style emphasized feel over complexity, which aligned well with the band's evolving sound. His introduction was not without tension. Early fans of Pete Best resisted the change, and Ringo initially faced skepticism. However, his personality, calm, humorous, and grounded, helped him integrate quickly. Within a short time, he became not just the drummer, but a stabilizing presence within the group. Recording sessions in the early days were also challenging. Producer George Martin occasionally used session drummers for studio precision, which temporarily sidelined Ringo in certain recordings. However, this did not last long, as his chemistry with the band became increasingly important to their identity. By the end of 1962, Ringo was fully accepted as part of the lineup. The Beatles' sound began to solidify, and his drumming became an essential component of their musical structure. His role was not about dominance, but cohesion, binding Lennon and McCartney's songwriting with rhythmic stability. This period marked the beginning of an extraordinary rise that would soon reshape global culture. Beatlemania, global fame and creative explosion. The early 1960s saw the Beatles transform from a local band into a global phenomenon. As Beatlemania spread across the United Kingdom and then the United States, Ringo Starr became part of a cultural explosion that redefined youth identity, fashion, and music consumption. Their performances were met with unprecedented audience reactions, screaming crowds, media frenzy, and constant public attention. Ringo, despite being less vocal in interviews and songwriting, became a fan favorite due to his humor and approachable personality. Songs like She Loves You, A Hard Day's Night, and Help propelled the band into international superstardom. Ringo's drumming, though often understated, played a crucial role in maintaining the band's rhythmic identity. His style was not about technical display, but emotional support for the song structure. Touring during this period was intense. The Beatles performed in packed stadiums, faced logistical chaos, and lived under constant security pressure. Ringo often described these years as both exhilarating and overwhelming, with little personal privacy. Despite the external success, creative dynamics within the band began to shift. Lennon and McCartney increasingly dominated songwriting, while Harrison and Starr contributed less frequently to compositions. However, Ringo still had moments of recognition, including occasional lead vocals such as Yellow Submarine, which became a global hit. By the mid-1960s, the band had reached artistic maturity, experimenting with studio techniques and more complex compositions. Ringo adapted to these changes by focusing on subtle, expressive drumming rather than traditional rock patterns. This era represented both the peak of fame and the beginning of internal transformation. Studio years and rising tensions within the band as the Beatles moved away from touring and into studio-based creativity. Their music became more experimental. Albums such as Revolver, SGT, Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band, and the White Album showcased unprecedented innovation, but also revealed growing internal divisions. Ringo Starr often found himself in a complex position. While respected by fans and colleagues, he sometimes felt sidelined during intense creative sessions dominated by Lennon and McCartney. The increasing use of studio experimentation reduced the traditional role of live drumming, making his contribution more selective. Tensions during the White Album sessions became particularly notable. Reports from band members suggest disagreements over artistic direction, working styles, and personal relationships. Ringo briefly left the band during this period, feeling disconnected from the group dynamic. However, he later returned after encouragement from fellow members. It was also during these years that outside influences became part of the band's internal environment. Yoko Ono's presence during John Lennon's sessions is often cited in discussions about shifting dynamics. Some accounts suggest her involvement created additional tension, while others argue she was simply present during Lennon's creative process. Regardless of interpretation, it is clear that the band was undergoing emotional and artistic fragmentation. Each member was developing independent interests and identities beyond the Beatles. Ringo's role during this time remained largely stabilizing. He avoided confrontation when possible and focused on maintaining group cohesion. However, the strain was undeniable, and the sense of unity that defined their early years began to fade. The breakup of the Beatles, a complex ending by the late 1960s. The Beatles were no longer functioning as a unified creative unit. Their final recording sessions were marked by distance, disagreement, and emotional exhaustion. Although they continued producing music of exceptional quality, the internal structure of the band had fundamentally changed. In 1969, they recorded together for the final time at Abbey Road Studios. Shortly afterward, John Lennon privately announced his departure, followed by Paul McCartney's public confirmation in 1970 that the band had ended. The breakup has been attributed to multiple factors: creative differences, business disputes, personal relationships, and evolving life goals. Over time, narratives have expanded to include external influences, including Yoko Ono's presence during Lennon's final years with the band. Some interpretations suggest she intensified existing tensions, while others emphasize that the breakup was inevitable due to the members' individual growth. Ringo Starr's own reflections tend to be more measured. He has acknowledged tensions within the group and personal struggles during the period, but he often avoids assigning blame to any single individual. His perspective emphasizes emotional fatigue and the natural conclusion of an intense collaborative era. The end of the Beatles marked not only the dissolution of a band, but the conclusion of a cultural movement that had defined the 1960s. Solo career, reinvention, and continued relevance. After the Beatles disbanded, Ringo Starr successfully transitioned into a solo career. Unlike some expectations that he would remain primarily a drummer for others, he established himself as a solo artist with notable chart success. Songs such as It Don't Come Easy, Photograph, and You're 16 demonstrated his ability to connect with audiences independently. His 1973 album Ringo became a major commercial success, featuring collaborations with former bandmates and other prominent musicians. Beyond music, Ringo expanded into acting, television, and narration. His work on children's programs, including Thomas and Friends, introduced him to a new generation of audiences. His distinctive voice and calm delivery became widely recognized. In 1989, he formed the All-Star Band, a rotating collective of musicians that toured internationally. The concept emphasized collaboration and celebration rather than hierarchy, reflecting Ringo's inclusive musical philosophy. His drumming style also gained academic and critical recognition over time. Rather than focusing on technical complexity, he was praised for musical sensitivity, timing, and innovation in groove-based playing. Ringo's solo career demonstrated that his artistic identity extended far beyond the Beatles, even if his legacy remained closely tied to the band. Personal life and public image. Ringo Starr's personal life has included both stability and hardship. His first marriage to Maureen Cox in 1965 produced 3 children, but eventually ended in divorce amid personal challenges and lifestyle pressures during the height of fame. He later married actress Barbara Bach in 1981, a relationship that brought greater stability in his later years. The couple has often maintained a relatively private lifestyle compared to the intense public attention of his earlier career. Ringo has also faced health challenges, including struggles with alcohol in earlier decades, which he later addressed through sobriety and lifestyle changes. His interest in wellness, meditation, and vegetarianism has been part of his later public identity. Financially, he has remained successful, with investments, royalties, and continued performances contributing to long-term stability. However, he has often emphasized simplicity over excess, maintaining a relatively grounded public persona. His family legacy continues through his children and grandchildren, some of whom have pursued musical careers. Legacy and reflections on history. Ringo Starr's legacy is defined not by dominance, but by consistency. As the drummer of the Beatles, he provided the rhythmic foundation for some of the most influential music ever recorded. As a solo artist, he demonstrated adaptability and longevity. Over time, discussions about the Beatles' breakup have evolved into complex debates involving memory, interpretation, and cultural mythmaking. Claims about individuals influencing the band's dissolution, such as Yoko Ono's role, remain widely debated and are not universally accepted as factual explanations. Ringo's own public stance has generally been balanced, often emphasizing shared responsibility and natural evolution rather than assigning blame. His reflections highlight emotional fatigue, creative divergence, and the pressures of unprecedented fame. Ultimately, the Beatles' story is not defined by a single cause of breakup, but by a convergence of artistic growth, personal change, and external pressures. Conclusion: the beat that never fully ends. Ringo Starr's journey from a sickly child in Liverpool to global music icon is a story of resilience, timing, and quiet strength. While he is often remembered as the least vocal member of the Beatles, his contribution to their sound and stability is undeniable. The band's breakup remains one of the most analyzed events in music history, often surrounded by competing narratives and interpretations. Whether focusing on internal tensions, creative evolution, or external influences, the truth is layered rather than singular. Ringo's life after the Beatles demonstrates continuity rather than decline. He remained active, relevant, and creatively engaged across decades, building a legacy that extends far beyond the original band. In the end, his story is not just about fame or controversy, but about endurance, keeping time through changing rhythms, both in music and in life.